Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Constructing Kingdoms with the Violet Howler, a literary analysis of the Kingdom Hearts story. Today, I want to talk about a character who has been overlooked not only by fans theorizing about future games, but also by other characters in the series itself.
Oh dear, what an awkward situation.
For most of Kingdom Hearts 1, Maleficent was built up as the villain responsible for the heartless invasion of the worlds and was seemingly the biggest threat that Sora needed to defeat in order to restore peace to the universe. But in later titles, that role is consistently occupied by original villains like Xehanort and the Organization, while the Mistress of All Evil has largely become a background character amid the larger plot of the series, with her schemes primarily being viewed as a diversion from the main conflict rather than anything substantial. As a result, I've seen many fans over the years express the sentiment that she's become something of a joke at this point. Especially because she goes from trying to gain access to the primordial source of all light in Kingdom Hearts 1 to kidnapping Santa Claus in Kingdom Hearts 2. Yet despite this apparent decline in menace and threat level, the series has made a point to not only keep her involved in the story, but to give her connections to the lore and mysteries that are being set up for the Lost Master arc. Which, considering how far ahead series creator Tetsuya Nomura envisioned the ending of the Dark Seeker saga, indicates that the writers have plans for Maleficent that have yet to be fully realized. Thus, when speculating about the future of the series, it's important to take her role into account in order to form the most complete picture of what to expect from the next phase of the narrative. So without further ado, let's break down Maleficent's involvement in the Kingdom Hearts franchise and how it factors into the themes of the overall story.
Now shall you deal with me, O Prince, and all the powers of hell!
Before the beginning of the first Kingdom Hearts game, Maleficent was living out the canon events depicted on-screen in Disney's 1959 film Sleeping Beauty. At some point after the beginning of the movie, a group of Keyblade wielders from Scala ad Caelum visit the Enchanted Dominion and learn about the curse that Maleficent placed on Princess Aurora. One of them, a girl named Hoder, tries to help the princess by confronting Maleficent directly and forcing the evil fairy to remove the curse. A decision which results in her own death, though the exact details of what happened remain unclear. Nevertheless, Hoder's demise while trying to end Maleficent's curse on Aurora served as the catalyst for the main plot of Kingdom Hearts Dark Road, the events of which would mark the start of fellow Keyblade wielder Xehanort's path to becoming obsessed with remaking the universe to a state of perfect balance. Xehanort later visits the Enchanted Dominion at some point before the princess's 16th birthday and gives Maleficent information about the workings of the wider universe. Following that meeting, the rest of her world's story plays out largely the same as it did in the original film, with the interference of Terra, Ventus, and Aqua only amounting to a minor detour from the existing narrative before ultimately reaching the same endpoint as the movie. Yet instead of dying like in the movie, Maleficent survives her battle with Prince Philip and sets her sights on searching for the 7 Hearts of Pure Light that can grant her the power to rule the universe. To aid her on her quest, she gathers an alliance of fellow Disney villains, and they spend the next decade using armies of Heartless to conquer and destroy worlds by seeking out each one's keyhole as they search for the Princesses of Heart. But over the course of the first game, Sora eliminates her allies one by one before storming Hollow Bastion and facing Maleficent directly. After being defeated by Sora and friends, Maleficent uses the knowledge that she gained from Xehanort to go back in time and try to rewrite her own history in order to erase her past defeats. Instead, she overshoots her target era by several centuries, and winds up trapped in a digital simulation of the Enchanted Dominion created to prevent her from gaining knowledge of other worlds' futures and derailing the course of the series' narrative. In the process of escaping, she unwittingly sets in motion the destruction of Daybreak Town, the main hub for Keyblade wielders of that era, which results in several Keyblade wielders being scattered across different worlds and time periods, one of whom became the founder of Scala ad Caelum and the civilization of Keyblade wielders that trained Hoder and Xehanort in the first place. Following her return to the present in Kingdom Hearts 2, Maleficent sets out to recreate her villain alliance and rebuild her Heartless armies. But just like Darth Maul following his return from 10 years in exile during Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the present-day Kingdom Hearts universe has moved on during Maleficent's absence. The majority of her former allies are now off pursuing their own individual agendas, and even the ones who are willing to team up again quickly lose interest and break away to do their own thing. The only villain who stays by her side is Pete, whose role in the Alliance was that of an emissary traveling to different worlds and recruiting new allies on Maleficent's behalf while creating more Heartless for their army. But the new allies that Pete recruits during Kingdom Hearts 2 are quickly vanquished by Sora and company, while Organization 13 usurps control of Maleficent's army of Heartless halfway through the game. Later on, she offers her assistance to the heroes in the hopes of claiming the Organization's castle for herself after Sora and his friends take down Xemnas, but the series has yet to elaborate on how that went. What we do know is that right after Kingdom Hearts 2, she sends Pete to spy on Disney Castle during the events of Recoded, which results in him getting sucked into a virtual simulation of Kingdom Hearts 1 created from the digitizing of Jiminy's journal. After entering the datascape herself, Maleficent decides to conquer the digital worlds, and use the link with Disney Castle to invade the real world once she finishes subjugating the data ones. Although her plans are once again thwarted, the experience reminds Maleficent of the Ancient Book of Prophecies, a legendary tome said to transcribe events that have yet to happen, as well as conjure people, worlds, and artifacts that don't exist in the present, such as the simulation of the Enchanted Dominion that she had been trapped in during her visit to the Age of Fairy Tales, along with most of the other Disney worlds featured in the Key Saga. Suspecting a connection between the Book of Prophecies and the Journal, she and Pete hold Minnie Mouse hostage in Dream Drop Distance to try and ransom her for the computer that houses the simulation of the Journal. When that plan fails, Maleficent decides to look for the Book of Prophecies itself, and proceeds to spend all of Kingdom Hearts 3 searching for a mysterious black box last seen during the Age of Fairy Tales that she believes contains a copy of the legendary book. When you look at Maleficent's involvement in chronological order like this, there is a clear pattern to her actions in each game that is only made more blatant by the introduction of the Book of Prophecies. Because by searching for a book that can dictate destiny itself, Maleficent is explicitly trying to control her own fate. Everything she's been doing across the entire series from the moment she lived past the end of her movie has been motivated by a refusal to let her story end on anyone's terms but her own. And this fits perfectly with the emphasis on destiny and fate that Kingdom Hearts has begun to incorporate over the last few years, because whenever stories tackle those concepts, there will almost always be at least one character who tries to defy whatever outcome has been foretold and change how their story ends. Which in Maleficent's case is literal when you consider everything I discussed in my previous episode about the nature of the Kingdom Hearts universe. Like I said in my last video, worlds are not only planets, but the physical embodiments of stories, meaning that the Enchanted Dominion is literally the story of Sleeping Beauty brought to life. Meanwhile, the cosmic force of Kingdom Hearts represents the story of the franchise's universe, which is the very story of the games that we have been playing for 20 years. And by recording significant events in the series, from the Age of Fairy Tales all the way to the present day, the Book of Prophecies is ultimately a physical record of that same narrative, just like how Jiminy's journal and its datascape are records of the narrative of Kingdom Hearts 1. But not every character who sets out to defy their fate is able to succeed. In many cases, someone who tries to change the outcome that has been foretold for them ultimately causes that destiny to happen as a result of their efforts to prevent it. In Gargoyles, King Duncan of Scotland hears a prophecy that his cousin Macbeth will one day be king, and leads his armies to attack his cousin out of the paranoid assumption that Macbeth is plotting against him. Which causes Macbeth, who until now had been loyal to Duncan, to fight back and kill him, thereby taking his place as King of Scotland. Meanwhile, in the Star Wars prequels, Anakin Skywalker turns to the dark side and becomes Darth Vader to prevent his nightmares of his wife Padme dying in childbirth from coming true. But when Padme confronts him over his actions, he strangles her with the Force, which leads to her dying after giving birth to their children. Even the Keyblade War itself is an example of this trope, with the attempts of the foretellers to avoid the light's fated fall to darkness causing the very conflict they were trying to prevent. And looking at the series as a whole, Maleficent's efforts to escape her fate in Sleeping Beauty ultimately cause her to play out the same role within the larger narrative of Kingdom Hearts. In Kingdom Hearts 1, she had escaped her fate as the dragon slain by Prince Philip to reach the sleeping Princess Aurora, only to become the dragon slain by Sora to reach the sleeping Kairi. Then she escaped that fate, only to end up becoming the dragon fought by Data Sora in order to awaken the sleeping Data Riku in Recoded. Meanwhile, her relationship with the original Riku is building her up as the dragon that needs to be vanquished in order for him and Sora to finish their journeys. Because like I explained in my last 2 videos, Riku is hinted to be the avatar of Kingdom Hearts and the story's universe the same way that his virtual counterpart is for Jiminy's Journal and the Datascape in Recoded. And as I mentioned earlier, Maleficent compares the journal with the Book of Prophecies, which is a record of the narrative that the Heart of All Worlds represents. Furthermore, the Master of Masters, the author of the book, orchestrated the entire narrative as part of a plan that ultimately hinges on people who are capable of hosting darkness inside their hearts without being influenced by it. Which, as young Xehanort points out in Dream Drop Distance, is a phenomenon that Riku himself has become an example of. And on top of that, the front cover of the Book of Prophecies depicts symbols that are associated with Riku. The Demon and Angel Wings resemble not only the keychains on Riku and Sora's individual pieces of their combined Keyblade, but also the designs of Riku's weapons Soul Eater and Way to the Dawn. Furthermore, the centerpiece of the book's insignia is built around the franchise's heart logo, which is depicted around the edge of Riku's Station of Awakening in Remind the same way that the crown symbol is depicted on Sora's, and which is also featured in 0.2 as one of the lingering memories of destroyed worlds, when the only world featured in that game, aside from Birth by Sleep's Disney Princess worlds, was Destiny Islands, the world that Riku came from. So all of this implies that in order to control the Book of Prophecies, Maleficent has to control Riku the same way she tried to control the Datascape through Data Riku in Recoded. Much like how Mother Gothel tried to control Rapunzel in Tangled so that she could have exclusive control over the healing magic in Rapunzel's hair. But since Riku has already rejected Maleficent's presence in his life, she's going to need to control him by force. Just like how Gothel ultimately resorts to chaining Rapunzel up in her tower when Rapunzel, who the Kingdom Hearts 3 novel directly compares with Riku, stops listening to her manipulation in the final act of the movie. Or how Cinderella's stepmother, Lady Tremaine, is willing to go to any length in order to keep her stepdaughter miserable and under her thumb, to the point where she outright attempts to murder Cinderella with an unversed in Birth by Sleep rather than allow her to leave her custody. And as I briefly touched on in Constructing Kingdoms Episode 9, Something There That Wasn't There Before, Riku's journey to find Sora in Quadratum is framed as a parallel for Cinderella going to the prince's ball, which her stepmother was also attending at the same time. So with these parallels in mind, it is extremely likely that Maleficent will be heading to Quadratum herself in order to capture Riku after she finds out about his connection to the Book of Prophecies. Which would also make an excellent parallel with Queen Nerissa from the 2007 movie Enchanted, who pursued her would-be future daughter-in-law Giselle from an animated fairy tale world to a modern live-action one to eliminate Giselle so that she wouldn't have to give up her throne. Nerissa initially tried to trap Giselle in an eternal slumber using the same poisoned apple trick that the evil queen used on Snow White. And when that plan failed, Nerissa turned into a dragon to kill the main characters and remain in power, just like how Maleficent turned into a dragon after Philip escaped from her dungeon in order to keep him from reaching Aurora and breaking her curse. Given the setup for Quadratum to represent the descent stage of the heroine's journey that I've discussed in previous videos, this all makes it even more significant that Maleficent positions herself as a mother figure to Riku in Kingdom Hearts 1 by saying that he's like a son to her. Because Maureen Murdoch's book on the heroine's journey includes overcoming the influence of a negative maternal figure as part of that descent stage. So having one final confrontation with Maleficent in Quadratum to save Riku from her plan to control the Book of Prophecies would fit perfectly with how the series adheres to the heroine's journey. Especially because her manipulation in Kingdom Hearts 1 still influences Riku in later titles even though he has long since rejected her. His rejection itself influences his initial views of darkness in Chain of Memories and his guilt over his actions in later titles in a way that mirrors the shame and self-loathing that the Beast feels after being freed from Xaldin's influence in Kingdom Hearts 2. But on a deeper level, Maleficent's words in Kingdom Hearts 1 about Sora valuing other friends more than him have demonstrably affected Riku's perception of how much he really matters to Sora, even as they've begun to repair their relationship. Much like how Gothel's warnings that Eugene will leave her once he has what he wants cause Rapunzel to accept the sight of him sailing away from her at face value and believe that her mother was right, rather than suspect that there was foul play involved. Because after spending the first game trying to make himself the center of Sora's attention by force, Riku's behavior in later titles indicates that he has now gone to the opposite extreme, and is assuming he'll never be as important to Sora as Sora is to him. In Chain of Memories, he assumes that the reason Sora ended up asleep in Castle Oblivion rather than looking after Kairi was because of laziness, not realizing that Sora refuses to go back to Destiny Islands without him. And in the Limit Cut DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3, Riku's reaction to hearing that his status as Sora's Dream Eater could be the key to finding him shows that Riku never seriously considered that their connection could be of any value to the search. So even without the foreshadowing of her directly trying to control Riku as part of her quest to defy her fate, Maleficent functions as a symbol of Riku's insecurities that she preyed on to manipulate him in the first place. Which, as I touched on in my episode on Kingdom Hearts and the Heroine's Journey, can only be resolved when he and Sora finally have a meaningful conversation about what he did during Kingdom Hearts 1 and why he did it. And as I said in the same video, the Descent stage is where that is most likely to occur, because that is the stage where Sora will have to confront everything that he's been repressing, including the pain he felt from Riku's actions that he has yet to acknowledge, in order to find balance and move forward. So Maleficent being fought as part of the Descent stage, whether right before or immediately after that conversation, would symbolize the metaphorical spell she cast on Riku back in Kingdom Hearts 1 finally being broken. Meaning that with everything I've talked about today in mind, there is a very strong possibility that Maleficent will either be one of the last bosses of Kingdom Hearts 4, or an early boss in whatever Sora-focused game comes after. And there's more to say about how Maleficent fits this Dark Mother role, but doing so requires a deep dive into how the Heroine's Journey critiques gender roles and the way that factors into Kingdom Hearts, so I'm saving those thoughts for a later video. But regardless of how the next few games play out, Maleficent's role in the overall story is clear. When we look past her world-conquering and time travel at how she fits into the themes and patterns of the larger narrative, what we are left with is the quintessential fairy tale villain. The witch locking Rapunzel in her tower, the stepmother keeping Cinderella trapped in servitude, the dragon blocking the hero's path to the sleeping princess. Every scheme that Maleficent has had over the course of the series has ultimately been about trying to change her story and reshape the narrative around her to one where she is the main character of the series. In the context of the franchise's message about the role that storytelling plays in preserving our memory of the people who have come before us that I talked about 2 months ago, her actions demonstrate a desire to redefine her legacy and control for herself how future generations perceive her. In the Kingdom Hearts universe, what Maleficent fundamentally wants is to be remembered as more than just an obstacle for heroes to vanquish on the way to their happily ever after. But in her efforts to change this, she continues to fulfill that same narrative purpose over and over again, in the time-honored literary tradition of characters causing prophecies to come true as a direct result of their efforts to prevent them. Like the mythical Greek king Sisyphus, whose punishment for trying to cheat death is to push a boulder uphill for eternity that rolls back to the bottom whenever he reaches the top, Maleficent's efforts to escape her role in the story of Sleeping Beauty ultimately keep landing her right back where she started from. Because no matter what you do to craft a specific image for yourself and your legacy, it's ultimately up to the people around you to decide how you will be remembered. Like the final song in Hamilton says, you have no control who lives, who dies, or who tells your story. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any thoughts, observations, or counter-arguments for anything I've said here in this video, feel free to share in the comments below. And if you want to get notifications whenever I post more literary dissections of Kingdom Hearts, feel free to click subscribe, and I'll see you back here again on January 28th for my next video.